Have you ever felt like your mind is at war with itself? You want safety, but you crave adventure. You mourn the past, but you're desperate for the future. You're tangled in a web of contradictory desires, and the harder you fight, the tighter the knots become. What if the solution isn't to win the war, but to stop fighting altogether? This is the story of Elias, an architect who believed every problem had a perfect solution, but his own mind had become a chaotic jungle of anxiety and doubt. Desperate for order, he entered the quantum garden of his own consciousness. Determined to prune away the uncertainty and cut out the paradoxes, he stood at the gate, heavy shears in hand, ready to get to work. But this garden didn't follow the rules of the waking world. Roses withered and bloomed at the same time. The ground beneath his feet wasn't solid earth. It was a shifting field of probability. A mysterious figure, the caretaker, appeared and offered a single, baffling piece of advice. You cannot force a straight line on a curved universe. Elias pointed to a patch of dark ivy. His fear, choking a bed of bright lilies. His joy. I need to cut this ivy, he insisted. But the caretaker urged him to look closer. Canalling down, Elias discovered that the roots of the ivy and the lilies were not separate. They were a single, entangled organism. His fear and his joy were connected at the source. The caretaker explained, in the garden of the mind, your greatest strengths are often entangled with your deepest insecurities. To cut the fear of failure is to sever the root of your ambition. Stunned, Elias dropped the shears. Was he supposed to just let the weeds take over? The caretaker handed him a small watering can filled with a swirling, nebular liquid. You do not prune to destroy, he sighed softly. You prune to direct. You are not a mechanic, Elias. You are a quantum gardener. You must learn to observe. Elias then ventured into a dense, shifting fog, the edge of decision. This was the crossroads in his life, a choice between his safe but dull career and a risky, passionate dream. The choice had always paralyzed him. Here, it split his reality in two. To his left, he saw himself older, wealthy, and safe, but with hollow, empty eyes. To his right, he saw himself struggling and tired, but with eyes that burned with a fierce, creative fire. The paradox was overwhelming. He wanted both the safety and the fire. It's impossible, he muttered. I have to choose one. But a voice from the fog whispered, why the rush? A particle can be in two places at once. It is only the act of measurement of forcing a definition. But what if it was actually fertile ground? He stopped trying to choose. He sat down and simply held both possibilities, allowing himself to feel both the terror and the excitement. As he accepted the contradiction, a miracle happened. The energy he used to waste fighting himself was suddenly released. He understood that the tension between safety and risk wasn't a wall. It was a battery, the very power source of his creativity. Growth, he realized, isn't about finding the right answer. It's about expanding your mind to hold the contradiction. Next, his path led him downward, into the shadow sector of the garden. This was the place of grief, a place Elias had avoided for years. In the center stood a massive, ancient willow tree, its branches weeping with the memories of lost relationships, lost time, and lost versions of himself. The pain was immense. How could he ever be happy while carrying so much sadness? The caretaker appeared once more. You are trying to separate the light from the dark, he said. But in the cosmos, dark matter holds the galaxies together. Without its unseen weight, the stars would fly apart. He pointed to the ground, where the dark tears of the willow fell. The soil was incredibly rich, and from that damp, dark earth, the brightest, most resilient saplings were sprouting. The caretaker explained the alchemy of the quantum garden. Your grief is not an obstacle to your growth. It is the fuel for it. The depth of your sorrow carves out the space that can later be filled with joy. The deeper the well, the more water it holds. Elias finally understood. He didn't need to get over his past. He needed to integrate it. He watered the dark roots, not to change the grief into happiness, but to honor it for what it was. And in doing so, the heaviness in his chest transformed. It didn't disappear, but it became a profound sense of grounding. It felt heavy, not like a burden, but like a mountain. Immovable, strong. strong. When Elias returned to the gate, the garden was still wild, the paradoxes still present. He was still afraid and still brave, still sad and still hopeful, but he was no longer fighting himself. He looked at the caretaker. "I didn't fix anything." "No," the caretaker agreed. "You did something far better. You stopped the civil war inside your head. You realized that the chaotic, paradoxical spaces are not flaws in the design. They are the design." Elias glanced at the shears he had dropped, now rusting away into the soil. "The mind is not a machine to be calibrated," he said, his voice steady. "It is a garden to be tended." As Elias opened his eyes, he was back in his apartment. The morning light filtered through the blinds, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, chaos and order. Together, the low hum of anxiety was still there, but he greeted it like an old friend, recognizing it as the root system of his excitement. On his desk, his resignation letter and his new business plan lay side by side. He felt no panic. He held the space for both potential futures, knowing the right action would come not from frantic analysis, but from quiet observation. He was a quantum gardener now. He understood that in the spaces between yes and no, between fear and love, lies the infinite potential of the human spirit. He picked up a pen. He didn't know exactly what he was going to write, but he knew one thing for certain. He was ready to grow. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the mind. Remember to be kind to yourself and tend to your own inner garden.